we talk a lot about S units. Well, this antenna is only 2 S units or 1 S unit or something compared to this other antenna, or this loss is only decreasing me by so many S units. So and we throw around S units a lot. And so the question is, how big is an S unit? 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, more than 8 dB. And I will generally, when I have a live audience, I'll ask for a vote on that. And the vote usually ends up at 6 dB because somebody somewhere, sometime, defined an S unit as being 6 dB. I think it might have originated with Collins back a long time ago. And it's widely used as synonymous with 6 dB, which would be fine.
Comment.
I'm sorry?
I'll comment. Used to be 6 dB. S9 was 100 microvolts into 50 ohms. And in the 60s, they changed it to 5 dB, with S9 being 50 microvolts into 50 ohms.
And who defined that?
Can't remember where, IEEE or IRE or someone way the hell back. I have to look that up.
The whole problem with this is, with any definition of S unit, is that every one of our rigs has an S meter on it, right? And we think, people commonly think that, okay, since this thing says an S meter that is reading in S units, that each one of those S units must be whatever value that is defined as an S unit, like 6 dB is very common. And my ICOM 730, which is really long in the tooth now, I measured that and I found my S units on that meter ran from 1.3 to 4.0 dB, from S1 to S9. And the 10 dB increments above S9 ran from 5.6 to 13.5. There were some older Kenwoods that were around 5 dB. And not very long ago, just a few months ago, I finally upgraded my old IC 730 to an IC 7300, which is a software-defined radio, modern technology and so forth. And I thought, you know, surely it would be easy for them to set the S units to be exactly 6 dB or whatever they wanted. In old rigs like the IC 730, all they did, and for many, many years, all they did was take the AGC line and run it to a meter. And the AGC circuit was always highly nonlinear, it's roughly logarithmic, but very roughly. And then they'd put it on a meter and they'd make the meter sensitive enough so it'd jump around and make people happy. And the 730 was kind of typical of that. So I thought, well, maybe with 7300, they've got the technology to make the S units nice and linear, or nice and constant anyway. And so I made a quick measurement of my 7300 on one band, one frequency under one set of conditions. It was on 80 meters, which is where it happened to be set up for. And what I found was that from S0 up to S9, the S units varied from 2.1 to 3.2 dB per S unit, with an average of 2.7 dB per S unit. And I think that's probably pretty typical. If you have a rig that actually had 6 dB per S unit, you would consider it a very dead S meter. It would take a big signal difference to make it move very much. And people don't like that. They like their meters to wiggle like something's really happening. So with that in mind, here is my 3 S unit.
Let me just quickly comment. The Wikipedia describes the IARU region 1 has a definition of S unit, and I just read it. You can look that up. It's on Wikipedia.
That's just fine. Just don't confuse it with your meter, with what your meter says, okay? That's the whole thing, is people do that all the time. They see the S units on there. I mean, that's what my rig says, the face of my rig. It says S units, okay? And I don't care whoever defines them, the S units on my rig on 80 meters at least are 3 dB, or less than 3 dB.
Every rig is different.
Yep. Okay. So we've got a beam here with 8.64 dBi, which is 6.49 dB relative to a dipole in free space. And my ICOM, my old one anyway, is 5.7 dB from S3 to S6, so that the gain relative to a dipole is more than 3 S units. But I only said 3 S units gain. The gain relative to isotropic is 8.64 dB. So going again, using my ICOM as a measure, the gain is more than 5 ICOM S units. And why stop there? You put it over ground, and then the gain is 12.6 dB, and we got more than 6 S units of gain from this here 3-element beam. Now, if you had a beam that really gave you a free space gain over a dipole of 6 dB S units, that would be 36 dB gain over a dipole, and it would require about 140 wavelength boom. So simply by fiddling the S unit and my reference to gain, I managed to get 6 S units of gain out of my beam, which if defined correctly would have required 140 wavelength boom. So there's another one of my magical wizardry tricks that I pulled.